The clean, pristine waters here in the Pocono Mountains were perfect for a booming industry from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. Ice was harvested en masse from local lakes, then shipped to major metropolitan areas such as New York City and Philadelphia so people could keep their food and drinks cold. While that industry no longer exists thanks to the invention of refrigeration, there is a family with help from friends and the Coolbaugh Township Historical Association working to keep history alive every year by holding an event on one of the very lakes here in Monroe County used for ice harvesting.
Mill Pond number 1 is the name of the lake because it was a mill pond for the lumber industry. Back in the mid-1850s, there was a sawmill along this lake, and they timbered off the area upstream from here and floated down to this lake to mill it in the sawmill. The area was all lumbered off in the late 1800s, and the Pocono Mountain Ice Company leased the lake from the Tobyhanna Lehigh Lumber Company to harvest ice. They built a small ice house here, 1896, used that for a few years, then they built a larger ice house in 1907. That ice house was 500 feet long, 100 feet wide, and 50 feet high. It holds 60,000 tons of ice. And that was a major operation here. They used it for many years until it burnt down in 1938. Yeah, ice harvesting, late 1800s, early 1900s, there were at least 19 large-scale ice harvesting operations in Monroe County, all the way down from Sailor's Lake all the way up to Gooseboro. And at one point, it was said to be one of the largest industries in Monroe County. Ice was cut off these lakes and then shipped by railroad car to metropolitan areas of New York City and distributed by the Iceman to the people who had ice boxes in their kitchen to keep the food cold. For the ice box, it would only last about a day or two, depending upon how the outside temperature or how often it was open. So the Iceman was pretty busy delivering ice to the ice boxes. During the height of the harvest, there'd be over 100 men in each ice harvest operation during the wintertime. Then in the summertime, they had a smaller crew of 12 or 15 men who would move the ice from the ice house, put it into boxcars for shipment to the cities. The invention of the electric refrigerator in the 1930s was the beginning of the end for the natural ice industry. There was pockets of the ice industry still active until the early 1950s in Gooseboro and Warnertown, 2 ice houses near here. And the demand for that ice was for cooling boxcars. For shipping perishable items, they had compartments in the end of the boxcar, and they would put this natural ice into the end of the boxcar and keep the food cool.
All the ice houses would soon shut down in the early 1950s. The tools became artifacts. Then in 1993, Bill Leonard's dad had the idea to create an ice festival during Coolbaugh Township's bicentennial celebration the following year.
Well, my dad had been collecting ice tools for many years. Actually, when he was a boy, he worked in the ice industry. My dad decided to build an ice house and reenact the ice harvest with the tools he had been collecting. Unfortunately, my dad died of a heart attack in October of '93. He had the house completed, but not the ramp. So we continued, my brother, sister, and I, and friends and relatives, continued building the ramp. And we had the first ice harvest in February of 1994 as part of the Coolbaugh Township bicentennial celebration. The ice was 24 inches thick that day, and we've been doing it every year since. The Coolbaugh Township Historical Association has partnered with us to sponsor the ice harvest, and they help us out with the financial end of it. People come from miles around. There's a core of about 30 or 40 people who parents, grandparents had worked in the ice industry, and they just come back year after year and help out. So we currently harvest on the last Saturday of January, conditions permitting, and put about 40 or 50 tons of ice in the ice house, and people use it for picnics all summer long. Our sportsman club used the last ice this year on August 28th. This ice house will only hold 50 tons. And that would be the size that some resorts would have. I know Pocono Manor had a nice house. Skytop had a nice house. That would be the size they'd use for the smaller resort type things. When we started off harvesting ice, we figured, we'll do it for a few years. And every year somebody comes up to us and said, boy, this is a really good thing. This is really great. They bring their kids back every year, so it just keeps us going,
The annual ice harvest here at Mill Pond Number 1 is held the last Saturday in January, weather dependent, and it's free for the public to come out and watch. For the Pocono Television Network, I'm Brianna Strunk.